Chapter 1. The raging fire maimed Emma's vision. She never imagined that after dedicating so many years to the John family, she would end up perishing in a sea of flames, her body reduced to ashes. As the intense pain emerged through her, she screamed out her resentment and hatred towards the tightly shut door. "John, in my next life, I will grind your bones to dust." The thick smoke robbed Emma of her last breath. She felt her consciousness and soul plunge into an endless abyss. Flashing images of her past life flickered in her mind. With a splash, Emma thrashed in the bathtub, struggling to rise from the water. She clung to the edge of the tub, gasping for breath. Gazing down in a panic, she saw her own porcelain white skin. The vividness of it all. Could it be that she had been reborn? She stood up in a daze and walked to the mirror. The reflection staring back at her was not that of an old woman, but her youthful self. Emma's eyes were filled with disbelief. How could this be? Before she could make sense of it, a familiar voice sounded outside the bathroom door. "Are you done yet? Everyone is waiting for us downstairs." "Emma? Emma?" John called a few more times, but there was no response. Just as he was about to push the door open, Emma immediately sprang up and locked it. I'll be out in a minute. You go ahead and wait for me downstairs." The person outside hesitated for a couple of seconds before answering. "All right." And then the footsteps faded away. Emma put on a bathrobe and walked out. Her mouth dropped open in a surprise. Wasn't this the night of her wedding 10 years ago? Haha. John. Who would have thought? Even the heavens couldn't stand by. In this life, I will personally see to it that you pay for your treachery. The heavens have eyes, though people are heartless. By the time Emma finished dressing and gracefully made her way towards her husband, the elders from both families had already left, leaving only the younger generation and a drunken John. It was only after being reminded by others that John noticed his new bride behind him. He staggered towards Emma, reeking of alcohol. "Wife!" The heavy smell of liquor made Emma feel nauseous. She forced herself to import John. "If you're drunk, go upstairs and rest. Don't start causing trouble later." Emma's sharp words made John pause, a hint of suspicion flickering in his eyes. The usually obedient Emma was immediately different. "What's wrong with you? Do you know what day it is? Why are you embarrassing me in front of everyone?" John's face turned dark, his true nature starting to show. "If you can't take it, then let's get divorced." Emma responded coldly, her fists clenched tightly, trying to control the emerge of hatred within her. Her words seemed to snap John back to his senses. He frowned and calmed down, his expression softening. "Emma, I drank too much and made you uncomfortable. Please don't be angry, okay?" His gentle tone was almost identical to the man she remembered. Calming herself, Emma allowed John to pull her into his arms, feigning exhaustion. "My head hurts a bit. I am to go back to the room and rest." "All right, go rest. I'll join you once the party is over." John patted her shoulder, a fine white powder scattering into the air, his eyes full of calculation. A strange fragrance wafted through the air, making Emma feel uneasy. She had no choice but to play along. As they exchanged farewells, neither noticed the intense gaze from a dark corner. Emma went upstairs, her mind racing with thoughts of how to avoid the wedding night, when immediately, her hand on the railing paused. A burning sensation gathered in her chest, a searing heat ready to erupt. Damn it! She had fallen into John's trap again. Chapter 2. With trembling legs, Emma forced herself up the stairs to the second floor. Just as she reached the landing, a strong hand yanked her into the darkness of an alcove. Her panicked scream was swallowed before it could escape her throat. She felt the imposing presence of a man pressing down on her, his aggressive kisses making her legs go weak. What's wrong with you?" Before she could answer, Emma felt her mind cloud over, consumed by a wave of desire. Daniel noticed that something was off about the woman in front of him. He frowned and caught her as she nearly collapsed to the floor. The next moment, Emma's arms were around his body, clinging tighter as the heat within her grew unbearable. "Help me!" She pointed weakly towards the guest room at the end of the hall, her voice a desperate plea. Daniel's expression hardened. He hesitated for a few seconds but ultimately scooped Emma up in his arms. Once she was lying in the cold bathtub, Emma's clothes, drenched with sweat, clung to her body. The icy water shocked her system, providing a moment of relief. But then the desire emerged back even stronger. Emma hadn't expected the drug John gave her to be so potent. Her eyes grew hazy, and a low whimper escaped her throat. "Please help me." The bathroom was thick with the scent of hormones. Emma's soft body pressed against Daniel's, her red lips brushing against his neck with a deadly allure. "Do you know what you're doing?" Struggling to control his own rising desire, Daniel pushed Emma away, his hand brushing her fevered forehead. Emma, now fully aware of her actions, said nothing. She just squinted her eyes and slowly pulled his hand down, her pink tongue flicking over his fingertips. The thread of Daniel's self-control snapped. No longer pressing his desire, he lowered his head and kissed her deeply, hungrily. Like dry tinder meeting a spark, the passion ignited instantly. When the morning light streamed through the window, Daniel was still asleep. It wasn't until the maid knocked on the door that he opened his eyes. The cold spot beside him on the bed reminded him that his companion had long since left. Daniel threw back the covers, his gaze immediately drawn to a stark red stain on the sheet. "Emma!" He murmured her name, a ripple of emotion spreading through his heart. Meanwhile, the woman in his thoughts stood with a stern face before her husband, silently enduring his fury. "Do you have any idea how long I searched for you last night?" John's face was livid as he demanded to know where Emma had been. A missing bride on their wedding night. How would that look if word got out? More importantly, Emma's condition last night. The thought fueled his anxiety, but he restrained himself from acting rashly. Emma adjusted the collar of her shirt and calmly answered his question. "I wasn't feeling well. I fell asleep in the guest room." Ignoring whether John believed her or not, she clutched her forehead as if in pain and walked towards the bathroom. Just as she turned, John grabbed her arm. In the struggle, his eyes caught sight of faint marks on her neck. His gaze turned venomous as he slowly released her, his voice dark. "Fine, if you're not feeling well, get some rest. I have to go to the office, but we'll go home together this afternoon." Emma watched his retreating back, her eyes flashing with sharp intent. Home? That place was never her home. She descended the stairs, her mind swirling as she looked at the familiar living room, memories of the fierce fire flooding back. Chapter 3. Although John said he would return in the afternoon, it was already evening by the time he came back from the office. The luxurious grounds of the John family estate gradually came into view, the dim lights along the pathway casting long shadows. "Second young master, second young mistress." The butler greeted them respectfully as he opened the car door. "Father, mother, grandmother." Emma greeted them calmly, her eyes filled with depth as she took in the scene that was exactly as it had been in her previous life. As expected, the next words from John's mother would be, "What time do you think it is? As the daughter-in-law of the John family, don't you know better than to be late? What will people think?" The elegantly dressed middle-aged woman gave Emma a sideways glance, attempting to appear sophisticated but failing due to her inherent crudeness. Emma lowered her head with an apologetic smile, about to speak, but John cut her off. "Mom, it was my fault. I was held up at the office. Don't blame Emma." He led Emma to sit at the dining table, smiling at his mother. "I don't understand what's so urgent at your department manager job that you couldn't leave on time." The woman's muttered complaint was just loud enough for everyone to hear. With a loud bang, John's father slapped the table, his voice tinged with anger. "Stop ruining the mood on Emma's joyous day. Charlotte, don't be so sarcastic." The John family had two brothers. Only the eldest, Henry, was the child of John's father's first wife. John was from his second marriage. Originally, Henry was set to inherit the family business, but a car accident 2 years ago left him paralyzed from the waist down, becoming John's father's biggest regret. John and his mother's undisguised ambition to climb the social ladder only fueled John's father's anger further. After the tension eased, everyone began to eat. "The young master has arrived." A tall, handsome man with an extraordinary presence entered the room. His refined features instantly commanded attention. "Aunt, uncle." He greeted them with a perfect smile, his gaze lingering on Emma's flushed face, his smile carrying a hint of something deeper. John's mother and son, feeling snubbed, remained silent. Emma noticed John's clenched fist under the table. Some enjoyed the meal in harmony, while others found it tasteless. After dinner, John was called to the study by his father. With nothing better to do, Emma mattered around the estate. Lost in thought, she immediately heard soft footsteps behind her. Alarmed, she turned, only to be pulled into a warm embrace. Tripping over something, she fell backward uncontrollably. The soft grass and strong arms cushioned her fall, leaving her only slightly dizzy. But when she saw the man's face, her body went rigid. "You're John's cousin?" Daniel smiled devilishly, holding Emma's hands as she tried to push him away. His magnetic voice flowed smoothly. "Yes, otherwise how could I share an unforgettable night with my cousin's wife? Here's my number. You can contact me if you need anything, even about last night." "Shut up," Emma interrupted him sharply, her face burning as she clamped her hand over Daniel's mouth, glancing around nervously. But then she felt a wet sensation on her palm and jerked her hand back as if electrocuted. Gathering herself, Emma felt frustrated by her own reaction. Everything was unfolding according to her memories, except for Daniel. He was the unpredictable factor. In her previous life, she had little interaction with this cousin, only knowing he remained unmarried past 30. Thinking of this, Emma's anxious heart cooled, and she lowered her gaze. "Forget about last night. It was an accident. I have no interest in having any secret relationship with you." Her urgent words were like a cold bucket of water poured over Daniel. Seeing him stunned, Emma took the opportunity to straighten herself and walk away, her mind already planning her next move. She knew she couldn't afford any distractions, not even from someone as unexpected as Daniel. Chapter 4. Daniel's scorching kisses trailed down Emma's slender neck, his breathy murmurs barely audible between the passionate exchanges. "Emma, do you really not remember me?" His hoarse voice, laden with desire, carried an unexpected note of hurt and sorrow. With a maddened, sharp slap, the intimate atmosphere shattered instantly. Daniel turned his head, his eyes filled with pain, while Emma's breathless gasps filled the air, her entire being exuding a cold aura. Seizing the opportunity, Emma mustered all her strength to push Daniel off her. She quickly stood up and fled. Daniel's words of reproach echoed in her mind, leaving her bewildered. What was she a Mappist to remember? Why did he say that? John's distant calls gave her no time to ponder further. Composing herself, Emma headed toward the main hall. Meanwhile, back in the garden, Daniel cursed under his breath. The soft creaking of a wheelchair broke the silence. "What's got the mighty CO looking so disheveled?" Daniel teased, his eyes crinkling with amusement at the sight of Daniel's red, swollen cheek. Unable to help himself, Daniel's thoughts drifted back to Emma's face, a bitter smile forming on his lips. "Tell me, what should I do? I still can't understand how my little bean bun ended up as someone else's wife." The sorrow in Daniel's voice seemed out of place, yet it felt so real. Daniel frowned deeply before sighing. "There are many things in this world that are beyond our control." The cool breeze gradually calmed Daniel's turbulent thoughts. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, his gaze was deep and resolute. "It looks like John has started making his move. Be careful during this time," he warned his friend, his eyes drifting toward the bright lights of the main hall. This calculating cousin of his was definitely going to be a significant problem. Back at home, "Emma, come down for dinner." John lightly knocked on the door, calling out to the person inside. A low response came from within, and the door opened to reveal Emma's indifferent face. John smiled as he took Emma's hand, ignoring her slight resistance, and led her downstairs. The dining table was laden with fragrant dishes, but Emma had no appetite. Everything felt like the calm before the storm. Emma's hand holding the chopsticks trembled slightly with unease. John, feigning concern, reached out and placed his hand on her shoulder. "What's wrong?" As soon as he spoke, Emma recoiled as if something disgusting had touched her shoulder. Her hand slipped, and the porcelain bowl crashed to the ground, scattering rice everywhere. John's hand hung in the air, his expression darkening as he stared at Emma. "Emma!" He called her name coldly. "Don't test my patience." His voice was laced with cruelty, as though he might tear her apart at any moment. Emma's heart tightened. She knelt to pick up the broken pieces, not even noticing when a sharp edge cut her hand. John, acting as if nothing had happened, continued eating his meal, though his grip on the chopsticks was terrifyingly tight. "You're coming with me to a business dinner tonight," he ordered coldly, not bothering to ask for her opinion. "I don't Emmett to go." Emma pressed her revulsion. With a loud bang, John slammed the table. Before Emma could react, he had shoved her to the floor. John straddled her, his hands tightening around her neck. "Don't mistake my tolerance for permission to act out. I could easily destroy those old fools from your family. You'd better wise up." His venomous words hissed like a snake's tongue, his grip on Emma's neck tightening. Emma's face turned red as her consciousness began to fade. Immadently, John released her and stood up, coughing and gasping for air. Emma lay on the floor, her body trembling from the encounter. John's cold, merciless eyes bore into her as he straightened his clothes. "Get ready. We're leaving in an hour," he commanded, his tone leaving no room for argument. Emma struggled to her feet, her mind racing. She knew she had to endure for now, but her resolve to fight back grew stronger with every passing moment. She would find a way to protect herself and her loved ones from John's tyranny. Chapter 5. The sensation of oxygen returning to her lungs was harsh, making Emma cough violently as she tilted her head back. For a moment, she thought she was going to die again. John's earlier outburst only deepened the hatred in Emma's heart. That night, in a luxurious hotel M8, several seats at the dining table remained empty. As the door to the M8 opened, a portly middle-aged man entered, Emma surrounded by a few sycophants. "Ha ha ha, second young Master John, you've outdone yourself." The greasy laughter, as repulsive as his layers of fat, made Emma feel sick to her stomach. She didn't need to look up to know that this was Danny, one of the shareholders of John Group. Before the man could sit down, John stood up, fawning over him and pushing Emma forward. "Mr. Danny, you flatter me. These little things are hardly a bother. It's just a token of appreciation for your immaport at work." As he spoke, he picked up a bottle of wine and poured a full glass, thrusting it into Emma's hand. "Go, offer Mr. Danny a toast." Emma's face showed clear reluctance, her grip on the glass so tight it seemed it might shatter. If she could, she would have loved to throw the drink in John's face. But John's warning look left her no choice but to step forward. Mr. Danny's lecherous gaze roved over Emma, his lustful expression making her skin crawl. He took the glass from Emma, ignoring her stiff silence, his greasy hand lingering on hers, causing her skin to pucker with goosebumps. "Second young master is quite fortunate. Your wife is truly stunning." Mr. Danny's satisfaction was evident, his address shifting from second young Master John to simply second young master. John's face lit up with pleameur, his servile demeanor on full display, lacking any semblance of a nobleman's grace. As the night wore on, Emma was forced to drink more and more. Just as her consciousness began to blur, she heard John say something that made her blood run cold. "Let's consider this matter settled. Thank you in advance, Mr. Danny. Emma, take Mr. Danny upstairs to rest." Emma turned to stare at John in disbelief, her fear reaching a fever pitch. They had only just married. Even if John was ruthless, she hadn't thought he would stoop to emic depravity. If this got out, how could the John family tolerate him? Terrified, she stood abruptly and tried to flee. Her foggy mind cleared in an instant, but she froze when she saw John's lips move. He mouthed Emma's parents and made a loose gesture across his neck, the meaning unmistakable. Despair washed over Emma. Leaning against the wall, her eyes filled with tears. I need to go to the bathroom." Without waiting for a response, she bolted. In the bathroom stall, the first thing Emma did was call Daniel, but there was no answer. The busy tone on the other end of the line made her vision blur with panic. She stayed in the stall until John, his face dark with anger, stormed into the women's restroom, kicking open doors. By the time she opened her eyes again, she was in a hotel M8, the lights painfully bright. Emma blinked through her haze, the sharp pain in her neck making her gasp. The sound of running water came from the bathroom, but outside the M8, all was silent. Creeping to the door, Emma tried to open it. As light streamed in through the crack, hope flared in her eyes. Chapter 6. The young master instructed that you are to stay here until tomorrow morning. The voices of the two bodyguards in black emigrants shattered Emma's last hope. The door closed again and Emma, defeated, sat back down on the bed. She reached for her pocket, but then remembered that John had taken her phone before knocking her unconscious. Her gaze fell on the glass on the nightstand, determination gleaming in her eyes. When Danny emerged from the bathroom humming a tune, Emma was halfway through undressing. She knelt on the bed, her legs spread, facing Mr. Danny. She beckoned with a finger, making the middle-aged man's soul almost leave his body. "Little temptress, John has trained you well." He laughed lecherously, moving closer to the bed, his fat jiggling with each step. He spread his arms wide, ready to pounce like a hungry wolf. Emma sidestepped gracefully, not letting him touch even a strand of her hair, her smile deepening. "Is that all you've got, Mr. Danny?" No man, regardless of age, could tolerate a taunt, especially not with a captivating beauty like Emma in front of him. He adjusted the towel around his waist, his body launching itself at her again, like a massive meteor crashing down. "Watch how I handle you, you little slut." As his hand touched her smooth skin, Danny let out a satisfied sigh. But before his eager lips could descend, a cold, sharp sensation at his neck made him freeze. "Now who's handling whom?" Emma pressed the triangular glass shard a centimeter deeper, turning the lecherous old man's face pale. His groping hand quickly pulled away. Emma smiled coldly, using one hand to pull her clothes back on, her eyes filled with a desperate bravery. "If you don't aim it to lose your voice permanently, you'll be a good hostage." The faint smell of blood had a powerful effect. Danny nodded repeatedly, allowing Emma to drag him to the door. The guards outside, hearing the commotion, were on high alert but were stunned by the scene before them. How could they have predicted a drastic change in a short time? Under Danny's urgent commands, the guards stepped aside, watching helplessly as the two walked to the elevator. Emma kicked off her high heels. At this critical moment, as soon as the elevator doors opened, it would be the perfect opportunity to escape. With a ding, the elevator door opened a crack, and Emma's heart raced with excitement. But in the next second, the hallway lights went out. The elevator door, stuck halfway, stopped moving. In the pitch-black darkness, chaos erupted. Before Emma could react to the immense fear, Danny slipped out of her grasp. "You bitch! You're asking for it." A blow to her head left Emma dazed, her vision swimming with the shadowy figures of several men approaching menacingly. "Get away from me! Don't touch me!" Desperate, she cried out, trying to pry open the stuck elevator door, unaware that the glass shard in her hand was cutting into her palm. As the figures reached for her, Emma, on the verge of collapse, pressed her back against the elevator door, wildly swinging her arms. Screams of pain echoed around her, but Emma heard nothing. Her world was sinking into silence and darkness, her last thoughts a swirl of fear and determination to Marviv. Chapter 7. Immediately, hot liquid splashed onto Emma's face, followed by a heavy thud. The pitch-black hallway was filled with an eerie sense of death. John's bodyguards were nowhere to be seen, and the only sound in the empty corridor was Emma's desperate sobbing. The lights above flickered and buzzed back to life, blinding Emma momentarily. She panted, trying to adjust to the immense brightness. As she lowered her arm from shielding her eyes, the horrific scene before her came into view. Danny lay sprawled on the floor, his eyes wide open, staring blankly at the ceiling. His body was splayed out in a grotesque position, with a deep, gruesome gash across his neck. Emma was stunned. She looked down at her blood-stained hands and collapsed to the ground. I killed someone." She repeated the phrase over and over, her voice breaking into a scream of despair before she slumped to the side, her vision blurring. In her fading consciousness, she vaguely heard hurried footsteps and Daniel's frantic calls. Before she could see him clearly, Emma come to the darkness. Daniel had just reached the top of the stairs when he heard Emma's heart-wrenching scream. "Emma! Emma!" He shouted her name in panic, his face pale. After confirming that Emma had no other injuries apart from her hand, Daniel finally sighed in relief. His eyes, cold with fury, turned to the bloodied body of Danny lying nearby. "Mr. Danny, the wound isn't deep. He's still breathing." One of the bodyguards checked Danny's pulse and found a faint sign of life. Daniel picked up the unconscious Emma, not looking back as he left. "Take care of this. Get him to the hospital. Make Marvivs." He would not let Emma bear the burden of a murder charge, and those who hurt her would pay dearly. Perhaps overwhelmed by shock, Emma remained unconscious for a full day and night. It was only as the Emon set the next day that she began to wake. The unfamiliar room was dim and somber. Emma lay in bed, her eyes filled with confusion, her mind replaying the image of her blood-stained hands. With a creak, the door opened, letting in a gentle, warm light. Daniel stood in the doorway, his silhouette outlined by the light. He approached the bed, his gaze soft. Seeing Emma alive and well before him was a relief beyond words. Daniel bent down, pressing his warm lips to Emma's forehead, watching her eyelids tremble as she pretended to sleep. He tenderly kissed away her tears, his voice soothing. "Don't be afraid. It's all over. I'm here." His comforting words, spoken with a magic of their own, slowly eased Emma's troubled mind. She turned her head away, avoiding Daniel's gentle caresses, though her flushed cheeks betrayed her true feelings. "Are you angry with me?" Daniel chuckled softly, his fingers gently rubbing her earlobe, his eyes hiding his regret and sorrow behind a charming smile. If not for a company meeting, he would never have been late. Remembering the dozen missed calls from Emma on his phone, Daniel felt a sharp pang of guilt. Thankfully, everything was still in time. Chapter 8. Across several blocks, the central hospital was shrouded in the darkness of night, hiding all the conspiracies and filth. In the quiet room, only the beeping of the machines could be heard. Danny's corpulent body lay motionless on the bed. The eerie atmosphere grew thicker as the sound of shuffling footsteps approached. The door opened quietly. Half of John's face was illuminated by the hallway light, the other half hidden in darkness. His sinister smile made him look terrifying. He slowly approached the bed, excitement bubbling within him as he anticipated what was to come. Licking his lips like a pervert, he said, "Emma, let's see who's protecting you." With a swift motion, John pulled off Danny's oxygen mask, and all signs of life came to an abrupt halt. A loud knock on the door startled Emma, causing her to drop what she was holding. She cautiously walked to the door and unlocked it, revealing Daniel drenched and dripping water from his hair. "Danny is dead." Emma was taken away by the police at 3 in the morning. It was pouring rain, and Daniel's car followed them all the way to the station. The thunderous storm mirrored the heaviness of their hearts. It was too late for formal questioning, so Emma was temporarily detained until morning. She leaned against the wall, staring at the iron bars that enclosed her, feeling utterly hopeless. Just then, Daniel arrived with a lawyer, securing a brief meeting. Holding Emma's hand, Daniel spoke earnestly. "Remember, no matter what, do not admit to anything. I will save you." The next day's interrogation came swiftly. The police officer who had been guarding Emma cuffed her and roughly escorted her to the interrogation room. A middle-aged man in a police uniform, adorned with several badges, stood nearby, smiling. But when he saw the cuffs on Emma's wrists, his expression turned cold. "Release Miss Emma immediately." Emma was suspicious but kept a calm demeanor. The man seemed to hold a high position. Amare enough, the officer behind her responded firmly. "Yes, Chief." He stepped forward to unlock Emma's handcuffs, then silently exited the room, closing the door behind him. Emma's anxiety grew, but seeing Daniel's familiar, reassuring face brought her unexpected peace. Daniel, sensing her thoughts, smiled warmly and signaled to the lawyer behind him. "Chief Zhang." Daniel began calmly. "This is the death certificate from the hospital, stating Danny died from asphyxiation due to lack of oxygen." The middle-aged man, his face stern, took the file from his secretary. "I believe your forensic team has confirmed this. If I'm not mistaken, the time of death was around 2 a.m. yesterday." Daniel continued, standing up and placing his arm around Emma's shoulders. "Do you still need me to provide Miss Emma's alibi?" Chief Zhang's hesitant expression melted into a smile as he noticed the check tucked within the documents. His demeanor became obsequious, treating Daniel as if he were his superior. "With Mr. Danny's bail, our department will certainly not detain anyone without cause. We will ensure the real culprit is found and Miss Emma's name is cleared." With that, he opened the door and gestured for them to leave. Before Emma could fully comprehend what was happening, she was ushered out of the police station. The dark luxury car sped away from the station. Emma stared out the window, lost in thought, oblivious to Daniel leaning closer. "Emma!" His voice was low and gentle. Startled, Emma turned to him, only to be met with Daniel's Madden intense kiss. Caught off guard, she found herself pulled into the kiss, her mind reeling. Chapter 9. Maddenly, the driver and the lawyer in the front seat cleared their throats awkwardly. Emma blushed and quickly pushed Daniel away, accidentally pressing down on his injured shoulder. A pained grunt escaped from him, and the next second, Emma saw him bend over in discomfort, sweat beading on his forehead. Emma panicked, her concern evident in her eyes. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." Before she could finish, Daniel silenced her with his hand, straightening up with an attempt at compo-amer. He gazed at Emma seriously. "Don't apologize to me." Those 3 words felt distant. Perhaps it was Daniel's affectionate gaze that made Emma uneasy. She lowered her eyes, feeling inexplicably confused. Just as Daniel was about to say more, Emma changed the object. "What was that death certificate about?" Daniel noticed her furrowed brow and smiled lightly, rubbing his thumb and index finger together, his meaning clear. "In this world, there's nothing money can't solve. If there is, it's because there isn't enough money." Emma understood instantly, feeling a pang of desolation. Her chaotic thoughts were interrupted as the car stopped in front of Daniel's villa. Emma got out and followed Daniel, only to freeze maddeningly. Daniel, noticing her unusual behavior, quickly pulled her close. Before he could ask, the driver behind them gasped. "Mr. Danny, what's that?" Following the driver's pointing finger, Daniel looked down and saw a white envelope under Emma's heel, exuding an eerie aura. Holding Emma with one arm, Daniel picked up the envelope. A sense of foreboding grew as he and Emma exchanged glances before he carefully opened it. Inside were several gruesome and bloody photos, taken with infrared cameras, showing horrifying scenes with unsettling clarity. Emma's vision dimmed, and she nearly collapsed under the weight of the shock. There was no need to guess who had sent these photos. Daniel fought to control his emerging emotions as he flipped through the photos, finding a small note tucked among them. "Mr. Danny, enjoying your sister-in-law?" The sarcastic note crumpled in Daniel's hand, his eyes blazing with fury. Emma closed her eyes in despair. When she opened them again, her expression was resolute. "Daniel, we should stop contacting each other." Before she could finish, Daniel pressed his fingers to her lips, then gently kissed her forehead. "Some things should not be said lightly. Just as I said I would help you, I will." His tone was calm, but the determination in his eyes was undeniable. "For now, go back to the John family. John won't harm you in front of the old lady. I'll have Daniel look after you. Leave the outside matters to me." Emma looked at him, overwhelmed with gratitude. Given the current situation, she had no choice but to follow Daniel's advice. That night, as usual, Emma helped the old lady take her bedtime medication before heading downstairs with the cup. The old woman, at her advanced age, fell asleep early but often woke in the middle of the night. After placing the washed cup in the sterilizer, Emma heard faint voices from the bathroom. She tiptoed closer, and Lady John's anxious voice filtered through the glass door, the indistinct words making Emma press her ear against the door. "June, that nurse, disappeared. The old hag's medication. Daniel replaced it. Have they discovered something?" Emma's heart raced. Lady John was on the phone with John? The more she listened, the more terrified she became. Medication? Besides the old lady, who else in the house took medication daily? Chapter 10. Emma thought about the strained relationship between John's mother and the old lady. A terrifying suspicion formed in her mind. "All right, I'll do as you say." The voice inside seemed to be wrapping up the call. Emma quickly and silently slipped around the corner. With a click, the bathroom door opened, and John's mother carefully stepped out. Emma didn't exhale until she heard her footsteps fade upstairs. The shocking information she had unintentionally overheard kept Emma awake all night. In the morning, Emma was too preoccupied to help the maid prepare the old lady's nutritious breakfast. After much hesitation, she knocked on Daniel's door. "What's the matter, sister-in-law?" Daniel frowned, struggling to sit up in bed. After a moment of silence, Emma clenched her fist, gathering her courage to speak. "Do you still have the medicine Grandma used to take?" She couldn't conclude the truth based on just a phone call. She needed concrete evidence. Daniel, puzzled, answered her question. Grandma's medicine is in the drawer of the side cabinet in the living room. As soon as he finished speaking, Emma rushed out of the room. Before everyone else was up, she informed the butler that she was stepping out. Sitting in the taxi, she hesitated, her fingers moving back and forth over Daniel's name on her phone screen. Finally, she put the phone away. When the taxi stopped, Emma got out. Before she could pay, the driver sped off, leaving her standing there, stunned. Recovering quickly, she turned to face the building with Pharmaceutical Testing Office written in red letters above it, feeling a heavy weight on her heart. Please help me test the components of this medicine. She handed the bottle from her pocket to the doctor at the registration window. Fill out this form and pay the fee over there. The doctor took the bottle and gave her a gentle reminder. By the time the reamalts were ready, it was around 5 p.m. Emma sat in the waiting area fighting off sleep. She had been uniformly drowsy lately. Miss? The doctor would like to see you. A soft-spoken nurse pointed her towards the office door before walking away. Struggling to stay awake, Emma entered the office. Miss Emma, correct? Here is the test report for the medicine you administered. The doctor handed her a sheet of paper filled with complex terms. Emma was confused and hadn't yet asked any questions when the doctor spoke up. Is someone taking this medicine? Seeing the serious expression on the doctor's face, Emma instinctively shook her head. Is there a problem with this medicine? She still held on to a glimmer of hope, not admitting to believe the worst. There is a significant problem. Besides the UML ingredients for promoting blood circulation and wellness, this medicine contains a trace amount of arsenic amalphide, or arsenic. As the doctor spoke, Emma's expression became increasingly distraught. The suspicion that John's mother and son were poisoning the old lady was confirmed, a revelation of monstrous proportions. What happens with long-term use? The doctor paused, maintaining a skeptical look at Emma, but decided to continue. If you're using it to kill pests, one dose is enough. For humans, it slowly destroys the respiratory and circulatory systems. Accumulated over time, it can be fatal. Emma's heart skipped a beat. A chilling sensation spread from her toes to her head. Chapter 11. Emma, thinking about everything she had just discovered, quickly hailed a taxi outside the hospital. Just as she gave the driver the address, her phone rang from her pocket. Glancing at the screen, she saw it was Daniel, the person she had been thinking about all morning. Do you have time now? Come to the John house. Hurry. By the time she arrived at the John family's estate, the sky was beginning to darken. The house was brightly lit and Emma, clutching her pounding heart, slowly walked inside. To her surprise, the entire John family was gathered in the living room, including John, who rarely came home, sitting on the sofa. As soon as she entered, all eyes turned towards her. What's going on? Before she could finish her sentence, a dark figure rushed over and slapped her hard across the face. Whore! How could I have married Emic, a venomous woman? John cursed through gritted teeth, spewing inamalt after inamalt. The blow left Emma's head buzzing, and she fell heavily to the ground, the impact making a dull thud. What shocked Emma even more was that the rest of the John family watched this violent scene with cold indifference. Even Daniel, whose wheelchair was positioned beside the old lady's sofa, held a stoic expression as he wrapped his arms protectively around the elderly woman. What was happening? Emma couldn't understand what had gone wrong. A familiar piece of paper fluttered to the ground near her feet. Emma frowned, and her expression turned to horror when she recognized the writing on it. You truly are a vicious woman, plotting to harm Grandma. John accused her fiercely. The paper on the floor was identical to the drug composition test report she had in her pocket. No, I didn't, Emma shouted in her defense, pulling out her report to show everyone. I did take the medicine for testing, because I suspected that someone had poisoned Grandma's medicine. She was too overwhelmed to think about why all of this was happening so immediately. It was the previous nurse, not me. The toxic medicine was replaced after I arrived. It was you and your mother. She raised her hand to point at them, ready to expose the entire plot orchestrated by John and his mother. But a deep male voice cut her off. Enough. Grandma never changed her medicine. Emma, I never thought. Daniel looked heartbroken, holding the old lady's arm even tighter. "Grandma, it's all my fault. If I hadn't let her take care of you." Hearing these words, Emma's eyes widened in shock. If not for the tangible pain in her body, she would have thought this was a nightmare. Just that morning, she had asked Daniel about changing the medicine, and now he was denying it. No matter what she said, she couldn't defend herself. Her throat felt dry, and a wave of despair washed over her. John's father's face was dark with anger. Had it not been for a call from an old friend at the pharmaceutical testing office, the consequences could have been disastrous. Emma finally understood the entire sequence of events. From the moment John's mother made that phone call in the bathroom, it had all been a massive setup. How pathetic that she only realized it now. Overwhelmed by despair, Emma felt tears stream down her face as she watched John's father dial the police station. Imagining strength from an unknown source, she immediately stood up and ran out of the house like a madwoman. Chapter 12. By the time the police arrived, it was already too late. In the face of certain power, the lines between right and wrong are often blurred. Emma couldn't afford to relax for even a moment, and she didn't notice the car speeding around the corner. With a loud crash, searing pain shot through Emma's abdomen as she was thrown into the air. Daniel was on his way to the John house when he called Emma, a growing sense of unease gnawing at him. Spotting the John family's villa in the distance, he accelerated, gripped by the fear that he might be too late to see Emma again. Everything happened in a flash. Daniel's heart stopped as he watched the familiar figure being hurled several meters by the force of the collision. Stumbling out of his car, Daniel ran frantically to the bloodied figure on the ground. Cradling Emma in his arms, his lips trembled, unable to form coherent words. "Emma! Emma!" He emmeted to hold her close, but froze when he felt the sticky wetness of blood on her scalp. The excruciating pain in her lower abdomen filled Emma with terror, far encompassing her concern for her own safety, as if something vital was slipping away from her body. "Emma, don't close your eyes. I'm taking you to the hospital now." Daniel's voice was choked with tears. Seeing the blood pooling beneath Emma only deepened his panic. Daniel sped through countless red lights, oblivious to the blaring horns around him, his focus solely on the road ahead. By the time they reached the hospital, Emma's breathing was faint, yet the pain kept her from fully losing consciousness. She drifted in and out, occasionally moaning softly, her face deathly pale. "Doctor! Doctor!" Daniel's desperate shouts echoed through the hospital. His forehead, neck, and arms bulged with veins, his shirt soaked with both sweat and blood. "Please, save her." Tears flowed unchecked from the man's eyes. Emma's emergency lasted deep into the night. Daniel sat in the corridor, a haunted look in his eyes, oblivious to the curious stares from passers-by. The ticking of the clock seemed to stretch endlessly until the operating room doors finally opened. The sweat-drenched doctor emerged, and Daniel rushed over. "Doctor, how is she?" The doctor sighed, his words a mix of relief and sorrow. "The adult is out of danger, but the child in her womb." The word child made Daniel's body go rigid. Emma was pregnant? That meant it was their child. Daniel stared at his trembling, blood-stained hands, unable to believe what he had done. He had killed their child with his own hands. Despair engulfed Daniel, the weight of guilt pressing down on his shoulders, nearly suffocating him. The doctor, instructing a nurse, turned back to comfort Daniel. "It's fortunate she survived. There will be other chances for children." Accustomed to emic tragedies, the doctor patted Daniel's shoulder encouragingly before walking away, leaving Daniel unresponsive and desolate. Harsh Emman light streamed through the window, falling on Emma's face without warmth. Her eyes, unfocused, roamed the room, the stark whiteness making her dizzy. "This is a hospital? So she wasn't dead after all." Chapter 13. Voices murmured softly outside the door, unfamiliar yet grounding. As Emma tried to make sense of her surroundings, the door immediately opened, and Daniel's face lit up with joy upon seeing her awake. "Emma!" He rushed over, cupping her face in his hands, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You know, you've been unconscious for 2 days." For the past 2 days, Daniel had been by her bedside, not knowing how many hours he had gone without sleep. Emma blinked, recalling the humiliation she had faced at the John house. Seeing Daniel now, all her suppressed emotions emerged forth, turning into overwhelming grief. Clutching Daniel's waist, she sobbed quietly. "About the old lady. You believe me, right?" This was her deepest concern. She needed to hear that someone believed in her, even if it was just one person. Daniel's breath hitched. He gently patted her back, reluctant to broach the object. "I'll get to the bottom of this. Don't worry, I won't let anything happen to you. You're safe with me." Emma released her hold, her face turning pale. Daniel's words implied that he might also be doubting her. Something seemed to shatter inside her, the sound echoing in her mind. Her arms fell limply to her sides. Daniel, preoccupied with his thoughts, didn't notice Emma's reaction. He turned to prepare the steaming bowl of porridge he had just bought. A week passed, with Emma's health improving under Daniel's meticulous care. John and his cohort had no chance to get near her. Having just finished a cigarette by the window, Daniel debated whether to tell Emma about her miscarriage. Steeling himself, he entered her room with a soft smile, only to freeze in shock. The room was empty. He called out, but there was no response. A wave of fear washed over him as he scanned the room, his eyes landing on a piece of paper on the nightstand. Dread filled Daniel's mind as he approached, the light piece of paper feeling impossibly heavy in his hands. "I'm leaving. Don't look for me." The 5 simple words plunged Daniel into despair. Clutching the note, he ran out of the hospital, hoping against hope to find Emma nearby. He searched the crowded hospital, calling her name, but the hope slowly faded. When he went to the Emma family home, he was stopped at the door. Daniel waited outside the villa for a day and a night, but Emma never appeared. "Stop waiting. Emma won't see you. She's already sent divorce papers to John. Emma's nothing more to do with your family." Emma's mother stood at the door, worry etched on her face. Seeing the approaching storm, she tried to persuade Daniel one last time. Daniel, filled with sorrow, punched the car door. The small flame of hope in his heart was extinguished by the distant rumble of thunder. "Mother-in-law, I understand," he replied softly, his tone devoid of emotion, watching as Emma's mother sighed and closed the door. With a final bang, the torrential rain began, pouring down on the ground and the hearts of the heartbroken. Upstairs, Emma stood by the bedroom window, watching Daniel's car disappear into the rain. It felt as though something inside her had been extinguished as well. The dull ache in her chest told her that she had unknowingly fallen in love with Daniel, the man who always said, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Even before leaving, she was already consumed by longing. She realized she had no strength or right to stand by Daniel's side. One day, he might not be able to protect her, nor would he be obligated to keep her under his wing. So she would wait until she could rise from the ashes. That night, Emma bought a plane ticket to study abroad. At the bustling airport, Emma sighed softly and pulled out her phone. "I'm leaving. Maybe we'll meet again." She sent the message. Chapter 14. 5 years had passed in the blink of an eye. As Emma stepped out of the airport, she had already informed the driver of her hotel destination. Ever since she decided to return to this city, her thoughts had been a whirlwind. The familiarity of the streets and buildings brought back all the Emma-pressed memories and longing she had buried over the years. "Daniel, I'm back. How have you been?" With the driver's help, she moved her luggage into the room. By the time she finished, it was already late at night. The next morning, Emma drove her newly bought car around the city, aimlessly amattering until she found herself at the address of the Emma family's villa from 5 years ago. When she had left City A, her parents had moved to New York a year later. Despite the larger and more competitive environment, the Emma family had managed to establish a foothold. In these 5 years, she had never once returned. What was once a beautifully maintained villa was now covered in dust, with wild grass growing in patches, stubbornly clinging to life with their withered roots. For a moment, Emma seemed to see the torrential rain from 5 years ago that drenched everything, and the sorrowful figure standing in it. Sighing, she realized the day was coming to an end and decided to head back to her car and leave. As she drove along the winding asphalt road, other vehicles occasionally passed by. A black car sped by her, and Emma didn't notice the familiar face that had haunted her dreams for 5 years, staring out of its window. By the time she returned to the hotel, it was nearly 10 at night. As she waited for the elevator, A tall figure appeared in her line of sight. "Daniel," she called softly, feeling as if her entire body was floating. Tears welled up in her eyes. Daniel stared at her with intense eyes, his lips moving as if to speak her name before swallowing it back, finally settling on a simple greeting. "Long time no see." Yes, it had been a long time, and she had missed him dearly. The elevator ascended, and as the hotel room door clicked open, the heat between them flared instantly. Breathless sighs and moans intertwined as their clothes fell to the floor from the doorway to the bed, their heated bodies moving together until they collapsed onto the soft mattress. The next morning, the sound of a phone ringing pierced the quiet. A pale, slender arm reached out from under the covers to grab the phone from the nightstand. It was a call from Daniel. Emma exhaled a breath she didn't realize she was holding, but the news that came from the other end shocked her. "Quick! Call the police. My father is missing." Emma's face filled with disbelief. Before she could ask for details, the call was abruptly ended. The severity of the situation left no room for hesitation. Rushing out of her room, she collided with Daniel. "What's wrong?" Daniel asked with concern, his worry deepening at the sight of Emma's panicked expression. "John's father, she began, but stopped short when she saw the television screen in the lobby, her trembling finger pointing at it. Following her gaze, Daniel's face darkened. On the TV were the very people Emma urgently needed to find: John's father and John. The news of John's father's disappearance, combined with the large press conference headline at the bottom of the screen, explained everything. Emma let out a cold laugh, grudgingly impressed by John's daring move. He had directly kidnapped and threatened John's father to hold a press conference, transferring all of John's assets to himself. Damn it! John, that bastard! Even Daniel's face was grim. They needed to get to the scene immediately. If John's father signed those papers, it would be too late. Chapter 15. Meanwhile, John, who had meticulously planned everything, was smiling emittently in front of the cameras. The bustling atmosphere created by the crowded reporters nearly lifted the ceiling, their flashing cameras blinding. In stark contrast, John's father sat pale-faced on the stage. The audience had no idea, but John's father could clearly feel the sharp knife pressed against his waist. One wrong move and his life could be in danger today. "Dad, don't frown. Smile." John leaned down and whispered in John's father's ear, his voice cold and sinister like a lurking devil. John's father had always known his son's ambitious nature and had oppressed him for years, never giving him significant responsibilities. Yet he never imagined John would do something so insane, threatening his own father. "Bastard!" He cursed through gritted teeth, his body burning with anger. The next moment he froze as the knife pressed deeper. "I said smile." John's expression was masked by a fake smile as he gestured, hiding his menacing look. His gaze was like a venomous snake, cold and deadly. Helpless, John's father forced a smile that looked more like a grimace. Meanwhile, Emma and Daniel ran countless red lights to reach the hotel just before the press conference started. They barely had time to park the car before rushing inside, only to be blocked by a group of burly bodyguards who seemed to have been waiting for them, forming a human wall. "Move!" Daniel roared. A cacophony of fists and kicks erupted as the bodyguards attacked Daniel and Emma, some even trying to separate Emma from Daniel. Despite Daniel's skills, he was quickly overwhelmed. A punch landed hard on his shoulder, and he staggered back, struggling to stay on his feet. "Daniel!" Emma cried out in panic, evaporating him as time slipped away. Her anxiety peaked as a torrent of blows rained down on them. Daniel shielded Emma with his body, silently enduring the brutal assault. His consciousness began to fade. "Stop it! Stop hitting him!" Emma screamed and struggled, her eyes fixed on Daniel's reassuring yet bleeding face. The relentless sound of flesh hitting flesh was sickening. Just as Emma's desperation reached its peak, the distant wail of police sirens filled the air. The panicked bodyguards had no time to escape and were swiftly apprehended by the arriving police. Daniel was severely injured, barely able to stand. Emma held him up, her face filled with worry at his pale complexion. "I'm fine. We need to save Uncle first," he gritted out, his determination leaving no room for Emma to argue, his hand gently comforting her. With no other choice, Emma imitated him as they slowly made their way to the press conference. Inside the hotel, John impressed his impatience, watching as the media filled the room. A smug smile played on his lips. Someone whispered in his ear, and John's expression changed instantly. "We can start," he said darkly to his father. John's father stiffened, his trembling hand reaching for the microphone on the table. The previously noisy room fell silent as John's father cleared his throat in front of the microphone. The continuous click of cameras filled the air, all waiting for his crucial announcement. "Dear members of the media, as the chairman of John Group, I am holding this press conference to..." He paused, feeling a sharp pain in his waist. "To announce that I will transfer all control of John Group to..." Chapter 16. Before John could finish saying his name, the doors to the hall burst open with a loud bang, interrupting John's father's speech. Everyone turned to look at the entrance in confusion. Emma stood there, panting heavily, her hands on her knees. Feeling all eyes on her, she steadied her chaotic thoughts and spoke calmly. "Sorry to interrupt, but I have something to say." From the moment Emma appeared, John's expression began to crumble. He quickly hid the knife he was holding and ran towards the security guards at the door. "Who let this lunatic in? Get her out of here." But it was too late. Seizing the opportunity, Emma rushed towards the stage. John's father also stood up and moved away from John. Although Emma's immediate appearance shocked him, his instincts told him that this was his best chance. Emma didn't waste any time and pressed the power button on the large screen on the stage. The huge electronic screen flickered for a moment before Daniel's face appeared. Despite the bruises and cuts on his face, Daniel's handsomeness remained unaffected. Emma signaled to the camera, and Daniel switched the display to his connected laptop. Grabbing the microphone on the table, Emma spoke with determination. "John, I told you you would regret this." Simultaneously, all the evidence of John's crimes, fake accounts, surveillance footage of him killing Danny in the hospital, and more were displayed on the screen one by one. "Your heinous actions have finally caught up with you." Emma's words, combined with the incriminating evidence behind her, pushed John to the brink of madness. He screamed curses at her, ready to tear her apart, but was quickly surrounded by reporters, leaving him no way out. Watching the chaos unfold and seeing John's twisted, enraged face, Emma felt a sense of release. The hatred that had built up over 2 lifetimes dissolved into thin air, leaving only a deep sense of satisfaction. The police soon arrived to quell the chaos, dragging John to the police car. Even in his final moments, he turned to glare venomously at Emma. The next day, Daniel arrived. When John's father saw him, he couldn't hold back his tears, especially when Daniel revealed that the car accident years ago had been orchestrated by John. The guilt in John's father's heart was overwhelming. That same day, he filed for divorce and kicked John's mother out of the John family. "It's my fault. I never should have married that woman and fathered Emmett a monster." Daniel tried to comfort him with a smile. John's trial date was set quickly. During this period, no family visits were allowed, giving Emma and the others a few peaceful days without the looming threat. On the day of the trial, Emma arrived early. She emmitted to see her enemy face the consequences he deserved. As the judge and the plaintiff and defendant entered, the trial officially began. John, dressed in a yellow prison uniform and shackled hand and foot, walked slowly through a small door on the side. When he looked up and saw Emma in the audience, he immediately went berserk, screaming her name. The guard's electric baton crackled, and John collapsed, convulsing on the ground, his eyes still filled with venomous hatred for Emma. John was dragged to the defendant's stand, and the judge banged his gavel to start the proceedings. To everyone's surprise, John confessed to all his crimes, killing Danny, framing Emma, and more. Each horrific act he admitted to and admitted he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. Emma watched as justice was finally served. The weight of 2 lifetimes of hatred lifted off her shoulders, replaced by a sense of slow and peace. Chapter 17. When the judge announced the verdict, everyone breathed a collective sigh of relief. Death penalty with a 3-month reprieve. This was the most fitting and just outcome for John. As John was about to be taken away, a heart-wrenching cry erupted from the audience. A figure stumbled down, rushing to embrace John from behind. "Don't kill my son. Please don't." The woman's desperate voice echoed through the courtroom, causing a wave of pity among the onlookers. John turned to face his mother, his expression indifferent. Immediately, he smiled gently. "Mom, come closer. I am it to tell you something." With tears streaming down her face, John's mother nodded repeatedly and leaned in. What happened next was beyond anyone's imagination. A piercing scream filled the room as John bit down hard on his mother's ear. Blood gushed out instantly. The guards scrambled to pull them apart. John, now separated, still had half an ear in his mouth, his face smeared with blood, looking deranged and terrifying. "It's all because of you, you worthless woman. You ruined my life. All because of you. No background, no status, nothing. You dragged me down with you." The crowd erupted in outrage at John's abhorrent behavior, shouting in disgust. Emma felt a deep sorrow for John's mother. John's mother, sitting on the floor in shock, stared blankly ahead. She never imagined Emmett words would come from her own son. Immediately, she stood up and hurled herself at the wall. Blood stained the white wall as John's mother collapsed, the gaping wound on her forehead a testament to her final desperate act. She convulsed a few times before succumbing to her injuries. The chaotic scene was quickly brought under control. Amid the turmoil, Daniel pulled Emma into his arms, his gentle voice whispering in her ear, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Emma thought to herself, no matter how many lifetimes she lived, these words would always be the sweetest promise. "Daniel, you are the best gift heaven has given me, the most precious compensation."